the last time is. So it doesn't matter where.
Yeah.
How are you? We're going over that. What? What, are you in the Wednesday class, not the Monday class? Okay, yeah. Everything has to be prepared, not this Wednesday, the following Wednesday. What?
This is an awful
You should
theme,
finish
like
as
everything
much
about
as
this.
you can, so I can give you feedback on it. No, I'm preparing now, I'd be happy to talk to you after this class. Okay, so do it, okay. Somebody used it in the class. Well, why you get what you do with the e-commerce? You know, two sites. You can do website, and then you know, there's a course that you get free, you know, you can get, upgrade, you can do it. Look at what they have there, you know, they store it. Again, I'll go over everything on, so you can relax it. The following Wednesday, you can respond.
Work with your thing.
Yeah, okay. Trudy, do you want to do me a favor and write on the board and then I'll first put the day,
Today's the 15th, right?
yeah, Monday. And then, and then, is that working?
Yeah.
Something working?
Just the other marker was fine, but it didn't work as well.
Okay, good. Okay, and then put, is next week we're gonna have presentations, so what's next week?
22nd. Do you want me to put that on the homework
Yeah,
side?
put on the home side. Okay, so presentation, what's the date? Put the date.
I put the 22nd.
Okay, 22nd is presentation. Then let's put, review session. It's gonna be, Tuesday, April 30th.
What time?
It's review, talk about review for project review, talk about that, project review. And it's gonna be from 7 to 9 p.m. in, LC 170. The ones are in Salem. Is it on the 1st or the 6th?
The 6th.
Okay, and then put and then also put on our exam, right? And then it's also an LC 170, right?
So, investigations review session, April 30th, 7 to 9, in LC 170. Final May 6th, 5 PM, LC 170.
Okay. Let's go homework and then we're gonna go over the presentation. So put on Monday here, we're gonna do acquisition, software acquisition. So put, software acquisition, and then also put ASP,
As a separate.
at the top, underneath, yeah. Slash, capital S, lowercase 2a, software as a service, SaaS, okay? And then put, underneath that, cost benefit analysis,
Like, as a subcategory?
yeah. And then we're gonna do a review of the exam, put underneath that,
Exam review?
exam review today.
Come with the final?
Yeah, final exam review. And then we can put the chapters too.
So that's TG 3 for
Right, what else?
chapter 10, chapter 13.
And then 12 too?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, 12, 13. And you know what else we're gonna add to it is, how many is that? We're gonna add chapter 4 of the security.
Oh, yeah, we did it.
Right, from the last exam.
Okay, so 6 chapters.
Yeah, 6 chapters.
And then any of the, like,
And then,
articles?
and then we'll go over the articles.
Oh, we'll go, so,
So put,
articles.
you put the articles, we'll go over them, but it'll be on, cloud, AI, ML, DL, and ERP. That's it. Perfect. So, Alex, can you do me a favor and check on, ARES's broadcast and then steam it? If we're recording and we can hear it. This way I get to see.
Yeah, it's working.
It's
And the
working,
audio
is
is
the audio
good.
working?
Yep.
Okay, can you be so kind and project for us our screen?
Yeah.
And then we can see how everyone's doing. Let's do a roll. Everything's. Does it take a while for the other one to come up? Okay. Alex, you wanna start a roll so that we can start on your side, you have a sheet?
Yeah.
Do the date, first name, last name, phone. And make sure that everybody has uploaded their URL. So, how are we doing? Yes, no? It's coming near the end. Unbelievable. How time passes when you're having a great time. So, welcome. What are we doing today? You can start taking pictures of this and then we'll probably add additional things to it. But this is our agenda today. On Monday, April 15, Tax Day. One is we're going to cover the topics of software acquisition, information systems acquisitions, IT acquisitions. How do you do a cost-benefit analysis? How do I think about budgeting and all this hardware, software? What should I buy? When should I buy? Because what happens with hardware, we know that the prices go up or down in the future, usually with hardware. Prices usually for the same type of equipment, it's usually going down. Software is more complicated. So we'll be talking about cost-benefit analysis. What I decided to do, next week is your presentation. So what I'm going to cover tonight is what do we actually need to have on our presentations and what do we actually need for our final project. So what I decided to do, next week we're going to be busy looking at everybody's group projects. So I'm going to do an exam review tonight. So this way, those of you that want to have more time can already do that. You can start going through all your materials and then you have time to ask me. How does that sound? So we'll already spend some more time with the exam review. And just to take a note that we'll cover the new material since the last exam, which is Tech Guide 3, Tech Guide 4, Chapter 10, 12, 13, and the only chapter that I'm going to cover again is a chapter that's crucial to us in the future, and that's security. So add all the new chapters and put in your notes also chapter 4 for the security. I'll also go over what articles you need to read for the open-ended, but that will cover the articles in the cloud, AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, DL, deep learning, ERP, the trends and digital trends. Your homework, I'll go over your presentations, which are due next week in class. I'll go through what actually has to be done there. I've set aside, I'm going to do a review for the exam tonight. But what I've done is, if you have additional questions about the exam, if you have additional questions about your project, what needs to be added to your projects, I'm going to have another session, an additional session on reading day, April 30th. That's that Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. It'll be in LC 170. It'll be Witten LC 170, and I'll be available for you. I'll be from 7 to 9. If you need me even longer, I'll stay longer there. And the final exam for this section is May 6th, and it will also be in that same room of LC 170. So it will have a large room where everybody won't be crowded. Okay, so that's our agenda today. And
What time is the exam? 26?
what time is it? What did you write? Trudy?
I wrote 5.
5.
Okay.
Good to come on time.
LQ 70?
What?
Is that LQ 70?
LC.
LC 170.
Okay, you know where that is?
No.
The Learning Center. It's right next, you know where Memorial
Is that
Building is? What?
Is Witten the learning center?
Witten. It's
Oh.
Witten.
Okay,
Witten
cool.
Learning Center.
Cool.
So do you want to write Witten there? Trudy, be my guest. Make sure, you can even write it on the very top so people won't forget that. That's the most important, right? Final exam, Witten Learning Center, 170. Along with, I'm going to spend time if you want to talk to me, ask me questions, ask me additional questions about the exam, ask me questions about the projects. I'll be an extra day for you that we're doing this. Okay? So, I'm going to go into Blackboard, and you can go into Blackboard as well. And I'll show you some things that we need to do for Blackboard. I'm going to log in with my Kane ID, and hopefully it'll work. I'm always just thrilled when something works. Doesn't take a lot to please me lately. Okay, I'm going to go into our section, which is our regular section, and then I'll deal with the audit area. Any questions up to now that you have? I'll spend time, I'll end a bit early in individual groups that have questions about the group. If I didn't go into detail about your projects, I'll be willing to do that. Another note, the final project, everything is to be uploaded to your audit area. And by the day of the final exam. But it really should be, what I would suggest you do is, everything should be uploaded to your audit area for next week, that you can present all your materials. But the revisions should also be there. Okay, so let's do a couple of things here. We have assignments. So, you see here, quiz chapter 4, security. That is one chapter, you can put it in your notes, that we will cover as well. For the exam, and for the review, I'll mention it. Chapter 12 is the business intelligence. Tech Guide 3 is the cloud computing. Tech Guide 4 is artificial intelligence. Chapter 10 is ERP. And chapter 13, which is acquiring information systems, is available as well. I'm going to go to course documents now. I'm going to go to PowerPoint. And I'm going to download chapter 13. Let's get our name tags out. Where's the roll? Okay. Let's do that.
Oh, the TV's not working today?
Alex,
Is
what
it not
happened to
on?
the, huh?
Is it not working?
No.
Is your laptop broadcasting to the TV?
Oh. Help, huh? Extra credit. 2 extra credits. Keys to Mercedes. Stop by later and pick them up. Okay, let's see. Let us see. We got it?
Yep.
Yep, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I've been talking all along, thinking you see. Tonight we're going to talk about acquiring information systems and applications. So let's think about a scenario. You can think about a scenario for acquiring information systems and applications. It's basically thinking about decision modeling, making a decision about information systems, whether I should acquire an information system, what software should I acquire, what hardware should I acquire. Let's think about this room right here. If I was thinking about this lab here, would you say, and this is going to be like a test question, would you say an example of the computer lab that we're in right now is A, on-premise, B, cloud, C, hybrid, D, all of the above, E, none of the above? So Anna, did you get my question? This lab is what? What did you say? I can't hear you. On-premise. What does on-premise mean? You're on a roll, Anna. What does on-premise mean? It's basically on-premise is where you are, right? It's basically the organization's site, or in this case, it's our site right here in the lab. And what do we have here? On-premise, what do we have? We have the monitors, right? We have computers on each of these stations. We have a computer on this basic podium. What else do we have in this room? We have furniture. We have chairs. So what would the decision be? What do we need to even decide? Paul, what would we even need to decide?
For what?
About acquiring information system. What decision will we have to make? Thinking about this room here. What decision? We'll go to the dean, right? Matt works in the dean's office, right? We go to them and the students, basically, what would the decision here be for the room? Well, besides that, do you think it is a adequate room for teaching?
Yeah.
Do you think it could be improved?
Yeah.
Is this the latest hardware?
No.
Do you think we may decide what? To upgrade the hardware, right? What else? Is the software, everything that we want, software loaded on these machines? No, right? So we got to think about software. If I need help, is there an app or some kind of thing that when we need help or there's any type of problems in the lab that we find, for instance, do we still have the beeping sound? Alex?
We do.
We have like a beeping sound remember throughout the semester. Is there anywhere that we can make notes to tell somebody they should go ahead and do that? Do you know of anything? We can call, and if they don't answer, so it's calling. What else could we probably do? Is have software that basically posts somewhere where it would be. So let's say like a help desk system. Are we aware of it? So let's say, will we go ahead? Should we purchase a help desk system? Should we write a help desk system? Is it worth it? How much does it cost, a help desk system? Is it going to help us better in learning? Is it going to make our students more satisfied that we can retain our students, that we can teach them the latest software and hardware? will they be more employable after they graduate, so they'll have higher salaries if we train them better? All of those questions for an organization is all the time of acquiring information systems and applications. Does that take resources? Paul?
Yeah.
What is gonna happen to all these let's say we decide that it's worthwhile to replace all these computers. They're old, we wanna have computers not only housing Windows, but what else? Mac, we may have also Linux to house it. We wanna have more up-to-date software. What will we do with all these? Recycling. So there's gonna be resources, right, for employees, right? Who's gonna schlep them out of the room? And what would you do? Just recycle them to where? Throw them out to the garbage, throw them out to the curb? You have to bring them, maybe they have like a supply plant. And what about the hard drives? Do we want to just basically, let's say we were in the university hospital. We want to upgrade their hardware and software. Is there a problem of just getting rid of the hard drives and selling you, hey, I'll send you, it's not worth anything, this hard, I'll send you this computer system for $200, and guess what? I have everybody's social, I have all the students' social, right? I have all the patients' social, I have all their medical records, and me and you can make a bundle, right? It's worth it more than stealing credit cards, because it's medical, because what can we do? Why is medical, a question for you, this is good for the exam, why is medical information worth more than credit card information? Because you would think credit card information, right? We could go on a buying spree. Everybody understand the question? What's the question, Matt?
Why medical information is more like
Worth more, on the open market is more valuable. If we wanted to sell, on the dark web, we wanted to sell medical information, like we wanted to sell Paul's medical record, or his mother's medical record, or his grandmother's medical record. Why is that more valuable than selling Paul's credit card, his mother's credit card, and his grandmother's credit card?
you can exploit that
How?
because people might have medical conditions that are necessary for survival.
Well, one of the things is basically who takes care, especially of the people over 65 in the United States. What kind of Medicare. And who pays Medicare? The government. So basically, if we have people's information, guess what we can do, Paul? So we can say, your grandmother had a hysterectomy, she had all these diseases, we can start charging them, right? Number one in Medicare fraud, you know what city it is? Miami. Why? Because it's a kind of transient population. Even when they do this, they kind of set up shop, leave, and so forth. So these are the kind of questions that we need to think about, is planning and justifying what IT applications we have, what kind of strategies we want. We'll talk about if we wanted to create software. So Paul, what was your group project? You were going to change it or something? What did you end up doing?
It's called Dumplings. It's like Uber Eats, but you're sitting in like a sporting event or like a concert, and you just like order something on your phone, so you don't have to like get out in between innings or quarters, whatever. You don't have to wait on the line.
And how are they going to find you?
You just put in like your seat section number, all that.
And then you're going to have somebody deliver it.
Someone delivers it. Yeah.
So you're going to have to work with what? With the stadium to let them in, or?
Yeah.
And the stadium's going to get a cut too? Right, because they're not going to let,
Yeah, it's like rent. You have to rent.
right, you have to be a concession almost to let people kind of rent things out. Okay, so who's gonna create your app?
You like created an app already, but
But it's not complete, right?
no.
Right, so it's a prototype.
Yeah.
So the idea here, when we're talking about strategies for the system development life cycle, the whole idea is who's creating apps here? Raise your hand for your groups, right? So the idea is how much is going to cost to create your app? Who's going to do it? How are you going to test it to make sure it works? Just because somebody writes an app for you, you think it's going to work 100%? You think it's going to be, is it going to crash? Is it going to be fast enough? Is it going to be robust enough? Are my customers gonna like it? Is it engaging enough? All of those conditions, and what do we want, and somebody says, oh, I wanna charge 10,000, somebody says, I'll charge you 100,000, and somebody says 500,000. Is one versus the other? And what do you have to, where do you can make the decisions that you say, how much revenue is this gonna bring me? So you have to do a cost-benefit analysis for all of these, and we'll look at a way to do system development. So that basically, just like we were talking about our project, think about this acquisition of software just like your project. If I'm gonna develop my websites, if I'm gonna have to charge for developing my app, what are gonna be the costs? How do I test it? Who's gonna test it? How often do I need to test it? From my customers to my users, and what happens? Do I know exactly how it's gonna be used? Do I know all the requirements? That needs to be done. So planning and justifying my IT applications is basically like accounting and finance. Who's an accounting major? Anyone? Who's finance? What's the basics of finance is what? Is justifying my investments, my benefits and costs. Deciding, should I invest or not invest? Should I invest in this project A, project B, or project C? An investor coming to you, should he invest in Paul's project or Trudy's project or Alex's project, right? What's going to be the most beneficial? What's going to be my benefit? What are the issues? So when you look at your organizational system, it basically, when we're talking about information, is having a plan from the organization on the very top end of seeing, does my IT applications fit the organization's plan? Does it affect the technology? And what about my development projects? What to invest in, how long to invest in them, and when do I decide this project is not for me? So we're going to look at the plans, and traditionally in an enterprise, you have a group, and in this case, Paul, I'm picking on you. Basically, your group is who are your founders. Maybe in your founders, you may have also somebody that knows software development, someone that knows the industry. You may have somebody from the stadiums, somebody that's worked with something like Uber Eats, and deciding, hey, what should we do? Should we be cloud-based? We know we're going to be, well, what cloud are we going to use? Should we use Amazon? Should we use Google? Should we use Microsoft? Also, it's going to be who's going to do the development work, who's going to test it. So these are the type of objectives that you need in a typical way. So we need to assess the cost, assess the benefits, and conduct what we call a cost-benefit analysis. Where's the roll? Who has the roll? Nobody? Okay. Is it going this way or that way? It's been, who has not signed the roll? So it hasn't gone. All of a sudden we got all these hands, everybody woke up. So, Stone, what does cost-benefit analysis mean?
Cost-benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm. Has something to do with cost, right?
It's like
Something-
estimating the strengths and weaknesses, like alternatives for.
Okay,
for-
what is basically, how much does it cost by application? And what benefits does it bring me? And how do I measure benefits? How do I measure benefits? What? Yeah, it's basically benefits. It's basically, is it going to bring me more revenue, right? What do I usually want to do in business? I want to, what? Increase my revenues, and what else do I want to do? Decrease my costs. That's basically it. And I want to be what? Profitable. I want to basically, even if I'm a not-profit, right? Even if this institution, we say it's non-profit, it's a little bit it basically has to cover what? All of its costs, right? What are the costs here in the university? Is this room, right? The land, the landscape, the hardware, the salaries of employees. All of these are costs, the lighting, the electricity, all those student activities, right? And where are the revenues coming in? From tuition, where else? Donation, what else? Athletics, right? Biggie, right? Why we're paying our coaches big time. Why? Because they're bringing in revenues, right? They're getting, a lot of them getting more paid than even the president, right? Because what are they saying? They're bringing in revenues, right? Getting portions of it. So we're always doing, in business, we always want to do a cost-benefit analysis. There's common ways to do cost-benefit analysis. Who's ever seen these terms before? Raise your hand. Matt, what's the first one you've seen?
Net present value.
Net present value. So basically, when I look at net present value, what am I thinking about? You can put in your notes, I'm thinking about the profitability of a project. It's what? My cash inflows or my revenues minus what? My cash inflows
Outflow.
minus my cash outflows. What are my cash outflows? My costs. What I bring in minus what?
Goes out.
Basically what are my cash outflow, my costs, and that will be my profitability. I always want my net present value to be what number?
Positive.
Greater than zero, right? So you can put in your notes, my net present value is always going to have to be, I always want it to be greater than zero, whether I'm going to go with this approach or not. Now, in some ways, I may have time. For instance, if I'm a unicorn, you know Uber's going public? Are they profitable? Who says they're profitable? Raise your hand if you think Uber is profitable. Raise your hand if you think Uber is not profitable. Not profitable. They're losing in millions. What about Lyft? Is Lyft profitable? No. But what are they thinking? They're thinking about the potential. Very few of them, they're thinking about the potential, and they're thinking about their growth. And what happens is they have more what? Costs than they have revenues. So how long can you do this? For short periods of time, but eventually what happens is that you need to be profitable in order to do it. That's why in your project, I say you need to discuss your revenue model. Just by saying, you know, we'll get investors, what do investors eventually want? Investors do want to see some return on their investment. So I have ROI. And ROI then is my net profit or I can say my benefit of my investment over the cost of my investment. And my my return on investment is presented as what? My NPV is presented as greater than zero or zero less than zero. How is my return on investment? You can think about it as a ratio, so it's in what terms? It's in percentage terms. So my return on investment is in percentage terms. It's the profitability then of my investment. Break-even analysis means what?
Your revenue equals your costs.
Right, so basically, it's how much do I need to produce in order to cover what? All my costs. Right? We want to base, how many units do you need, Paul, how many subscribers do you need to break even? Basically, that's what we're going to be basically, and thinking about I have to give everybody a cut along the way, right? The guy that delivers, right? I have to give a cut also, depending on equity or something, I have to pay for what? All my costs of my software development, all my advertising, getting all my my marketing, getting my subscribers. So these are ways in which any type of investment, and it's also with software, it's also with IT, is whether I have a cost-benefit analysis. Sometimes they may be intangible and we'll do it down the road. It may be when we think about this lab, it may be even when people are reviewing whether to come to this institution or another, is to look at their facilities, right? There's other ways that we can do it. It may be other benefits analysis. If we're broadcasting, it may be those alumni can join us free. It may be those that want continuing professional education credit can get credit only on portions of the class. It could be those people not taking physical seats can get not only benefits, but we can charge them. So basically, you need to think about how are you going to acquire those IT applications, and think about it. When we want to take Paul's example, is there already a pre-written application that does that, Paul?
No, not really.
No. Now what you can do is, we talked about it before, is you can use APIs. And what's an API? Who can tell us what an API is? You need it for the exam. API. Look it up. API.
Application programming interface.
An application program interface. And you know what my next question is? What does that mean and who cares? Where's the roll?
It's right here.
Okay, we finished. Who hasn't signed the roll? So, what do you think an application program interface is? Yeah.
It's like it's an interface that allows other things to be created like on top of it, so you can make something and use the already kind of created API to enter into your own thing, so
Okay.
you can.
It's basically, I have an application and I can interface it with existing applications. So let's take Paul's example. Paul, are you gonna take credit card?
Well, yeah, it's the only way that.
Right, so he's gonna take credit card. So he has to get a module that will accept credit cards, and what will the module do? It'll get all the information, right, from someone. It'll get their credit card number, it'll get their security code, their what? Sometimes it'll be, what else do they usually ask you? It's basically the 3-digit code in the back of the card. It'll have to verify it. It'll have to put it into the accounting system. Do you think, Paul, that already exists in other companies? That exists. So instead of the user interface may need to be different, but that portion, that credit card, accepting the credit card information already exists. So when it's asked here, purchase a pre-written application, parts of those modules, you can check off and you say yes. So when you hire a programmer or a group of programmers and they say, you know what, we'll write up a credit card verification system and we'll charge you $10,000 for that or $50,000 for that, what should you come back and say? Why not use an existing API and see what's available that you don't have to rewrite the wheel? You think Amazon has something like that that would probably sell, right? Or all the back end or all the accounting end? A number of companies will then sell. Think about it, Paul, is almost selling modules out of your whole application, and you're going to just take pieces of it, and maybe what's going to be unique for you is the user interface and your coding and other parts of it. But a lot of it already exists, right? Because it's like Uber Eats, right? It's like Eats from Uber, right? So you can take, and they didn't start from scratch as well. And it could be location. Yours is going to be a little bit different because you're going to locate the seat, but there are already locations There's our geo locations as well. There's space matching as well. There's ways in which to do it. You could have even a section where those are branding. You may want to have like subscribers, those that'll post for you on Instagram, the foods that you have, the ads. So those are going to be parts of it may be customized that are unique to you. Then you want customization. Now, put in your notes, there's something called ASP. Everybody doing this? ASP versus SaaS. So, ASP stands for what? Everybody sound wrong? No, what does ASP stand for?
ASP.
Yeah. Look on my board.
Application service providers and software as a service vendors.
Okay, so the acronym for application service provider is what? No.
ASP.
And software as a service, what's the acronym for that?
Capital SaaS.
Right.
capital S.
Now you got that. You're half a roll. And now we got to figure out what does it mean and who cares. So, an application service provider, you can put this in your notes, is an earlier concept. And that concept started with what we called client server. The client is what the end user has on their computer. Put it in your notes. A client is the end user's device or computer. The server is hosting the software to the client. Many times in a application service provider, that provider is the server. That provider provides the server where he hosts a number of clients. An example we can almost look at in some way is NinjaTrader. The company NinjaTrader, who's a brokerage as well, basically is an application service provider. What do? They provide the software to you as a client. The problem with application service providers is does it go through a web browser? Usually. No. So traditionally, you have it on your operating system. So for instance, in this classroom, what do we need to do? We need to have Windows installed. The application service provider has to provide then the software, and every time it gets updated, what happens with the software? It needs to be updated as well. And how many times does it need to be updated? On all of these servers, on all of these clients. On the other hand, you're on a roll, Noah. Software as a service vendor says, I as the vendor will provide a software, let's say to your company, Noah, as a service, and it means what? That I can charge you maybe a monthly fee. And how can you, Noah, as you're the customer, how can you access me as the vendor? Via what? Via a browser, via the internet, via HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol. We know that. So the strategies now becoming much more, the software as a service kind of blends in with what? The cloud. And why? It's much easier. Why? Because it's not, you don't need to have an IT staff. You don't need to worry about, do I have the latest version of the software? Is it Ninja 7? Is it Ninja 8? Is it 64-bit? Is it 32-bit? Now I can do a hybrid version where I say part of it I want hosted on the cloud, part of it I want basically on my machine, because why? It may be sometimes I don't have internet access. And that's going to be really important for me to see how my strategy works, even if I don't have internet. Very good. The strategy many times also is software many times, you can put this in your notes, is proprietary. The company, the vendor, owns the source code. And many times the end users cannot see the source code. And we talked about source code before.
Who owns the source code?
The language that it's written in.
No, who owns the source code?
In proprietary, the vendor owns it. So think about Mac OS. You have a Mac? Windows. Who owns Windows software? Microsoft, right? It's proprietary. Microsoft does not give its Windows operating system source code there. Office, Office, Word, Excel, all of those, the source code is proprietary. You can use it. Open source software means what? That there's access to the source code and the community can make changes and modifications. Many times, you as an end user, it's irrelevant whether you want to modify because you don't even know what to modify. But for the community, sometimes it's worth it. What is outsourcing?
When you hire people that are like outside of your company.
Outside of my company. So, Simon, outsourcing my software means what? I don't hire somebody within my company. I do what? I can hire outside. Has anybody ever heard about programmers from around the world doing their programs? Right? That basically, you can put out a bid. There are some companies that what they do is they're Indians that are based, maybe even some of them are based in the United States, that will control and supervise other Indians across the world. Or there may be, in this case, there may be Russians that they're developing software that other people don't get them to speak Russian, that don't get them to do it. And what you need to do in acquiring, this is what you need to do on your way to think about your company also, is if I'm going to have computer code, how much does the company want to write? And many times they say, if we're not a computer company, we don't want to write anything. We don't want to get our own IT staff. We want to pay for the application and run it. But the problem is these are ways in which we can do it. We can do an application service provider or software as a service provider. So this is a way for application. You can see always on the bottom, the cylinder always represents what? Grant, what does this represent on the very bottom?
Not sure.
Okay, well, read it.
The
You see where I'm talking about not sure? Right here, what does it say?
database.
Huh?
The database.
Yeah, very good. See, you're not sure, you are sure. You're 100% sure, right? So this is the database. And what is a database? Give me an example. What's your project? Remind me.
Live. It's like the one of the social networking app.
Okay, so who's going to be, so what kind of databases will I have? You're gonna work with me, Grant, right?
Just, about like pretty much just like information on all the clubs.
Okay, so clubs will be one database.
Yeah.
Who else will be in your database besides clubs? So we'll have Live and we'll have a bunch of Miami clubs,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Right, and you're more into the club scene, okay? So
Yeah.
I'll have, and what else will I have? I'll just have their names of the
Um,
club? So I'll have what? I'll have fields in my database. Each club will be what in the database? We're gonna review for the exam, Grant, we're on a roll.
Alright.
Each row is called what in the database? Who can help them?
Field.
What's a row in a database called? A record, right? You remember that? And what am I gonna have? I'm gonna have fields. You remember that, Grant? We're gonna have fields. What are the fields in the database? So Live is one record. What other fields will I have? Besides club name, what else? I'll have its address, whether it's Miami Beach or not.
Yeah, like
What else?
like parking, like fees, like
How much is it gonna be valet versus will I be able to park? What else? It'll be hours, right?
yeah.
It'll be when it's ladies' night, I guess, or not. Right? It'll be cover fee.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a song like that, Grant. So anyways, in terms of here of the they're what? Those are going to be all my fields in the database. So that's customer A. And then what do I have here? So I can have then an application service provider that provide you, for instance, of the club scene. And then I have the application on my customers. That's the ASP model, that every customer has its own database, its own application and customers. Versus software as a service. You're on a roll, Grant. How many applications do I have?
You have one application.
One application.
Yeah.
You're on a roll. So I have 3 customers with one application. So think about it. What is a software as a service? Let's think about the software as a service. We had someone that basically can white label. Basically, what can we do? Is basically you do this for Miami, and then you can have it done for another customer that wants to have the local scene in Atlanta, the local scene in LA, the local scene in New York, the local scene in Boston. We're really having one application, and then we're going to do it then for the customer A, B, and C. It's just going to be changes in between. The traditional life cycle then is basically we have to analyze. We can't just, Paul is going to put together it's a great idea. He's going to do what? Basically, he's going to try to figure out, he has to investigate what's going to be the design, who's going to program it, who's going to test it, how is it going to be implemented, and guess what? Do you think it needs to be maintained? Do you think it needs, what kind of operations are going to be? All of that has to be done what? Continually. And does it have to be fast? Yes. Because if we wait 3 years, guess what? It's too late. We need it done quickly. So the traditional, put this in your notes, the traditional systems development life cycle takes many times too long. So you can see here in the supporting, you have from the business need, you have the prototyping, and what area, Paul, did you basically do for your project? If we look at for your project, is basically you did the prototyping. You see this? But once we do the prototyping, now we have to get, and we want to go beyond that, we have to go something beyond prototyping, and we actually have to have a delivery system. So you can think about these, in essence, yes.
Is the final exam cumulative, or is it just the second half? It's just that stuff. So it is cumulative.
Does that look cumulative? Huh?
Yes.
That looks cumulative.
Yeah.
You see chapter 1 there? You see chapter 2 there? You see chapter 3 there? Does that look cumulative to you? No. Okay. It's good that you answer your own questions, right? Okay, but we'll do a review.
Okay.
But this is chapter 13. Is chapter 13 listed here?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay? So we have in terms of system investigation, we then have a feasibility study where you say, is this technically feasible? Is it economically feasible? Am I gonna make money on this, Paul, or not? That's what I'm really economic, behavioral. Are people gonna go for it? Or are they just gonna go with the concession stand, you know, I don't wanna do it? Or is it gonna be so behaviorally that you're gonna have to fight with the concession guys in the stadiums? They say, why should we let you in? We'll do it ourselves.
It's kind of like be through the, it's like Uber Eats, like it's still gonna, the restaurant's still gonna be a restaurant.
Right.
They just pick up food from the delivery.
So that's what, yeah, so what's in it for me, right? And just the negotiations on that. And then why shouldn't then Uber Eats get into this? How are you gonna prevent Uber Eats from this?
Buy us out.
Oh, well, you want them to exit, you want it, but that's what you have to figure out is you would love for them to buy, you'd love it, you know, for them to exit and then them to require you, but you have to figure out what's gonna be unique in yours. How do you get to market quickly? Because they have a lot of the parts already. So those are the ideas, behavior, and people say, hey, maybe I can just get Uber Eats here, you know? And then this one again, we need on the design issue is the deliverables, and then put this in your note, there's something called scope creep. That means a lot of times when you're designing a system, what happens when you get a lot of people involved, they end up expanding more than you originally had. The time frame takes longer and longer. The costs increase more and more. It's almost sometimes when people are like renovating houses, they say, oh, let me add this, let me add this. I'm gonna add a new kitchen, no, I don't like, I'll add new floors. And it gets to be more than it's worth. And then you have to figure out who's gonna test it. Who's gonna program it and who's gonna test it. And if you had systems before, I don't wanna just scrap my other systems. I want to make it that I can test it in parallel with my old system. And I need to debug it, I need to update it, I need to add it. Now, remember we talked about agile development, rapid application development. People want things fast, so what I want to do is I want to create a development environment that quickly I can get out a prototype so people can respond. Remember just like how you were doing your websites quickly? I said, there's nothing for me to respond to unless I see it. Other end users can't say whether it's good or bad or can't see problems unless you do it. So that tools for getting it, that's kind of the way that it's improving. And that's it. Questions? So we're doing a review. So let's go to courses. Let's go back to courses. Everybody with me in courses? Go back to the regular courses and go to course documents. Everybody there? So, you see something under course documents, you see something that says review exam 2. Everybody see that? Yes, no? Who sees it? Raise your hand. Okay. Let's open it up. Hopefully it'll come up. So Jerry, what chapters are going to be on the exam?
chapters 4, 10, 12, 13, and TG3, TG4.
Right. And if we think about if we think about these, so what is, all of these are new since the exam except what chapter? Jerry, you're on a roll. All of these are new except what? Which chapter? Since the last exam?
Was 4?
4. And what was 4?
4 was, is that AI?
Look at the quizzes. What was 4?
It's not on the doc. I feel like little comments.
Is it opening up?
The doc opened up for me.
What's the problem here?
Security was chapter 4.
So it's going to be that, if we think about it, it's going to be then the security is the only chapter, Jerry, that's going to be, again, reviewed. Everything else is going to be new there. And then, let me go to the Blackboard. So if I go to the PowerPoint, you see here that Security Chapter 4 will be on the exam. Business Intelligence of Chapter 12 will be on the exam. The Cloud for TG3. So what I would ask for in terms of the cloud is what? Cloud versus what? On-premise, right, Jerry? On-premise means what? Does that mean it basically is here and we're not using what? The internet browser, we're actually using it here, the cloud versus what we have. Chapter 10, which is ERP, which stands for what?
Enterprise Resource Planning.
Enterprise Resource Planning. We talked about it. Chapter 13 is acquisition. That answer your question, Jared, that you had before?
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. So have it in this case, as usual here, that what we want to accomplish here. So, let me go to Blackboard again. Go to your web links, please. And on your web links, let me put what articles you need to read for. We can start all the way on the bottom. Basically, on what is a SaaS business model and how does it work. SaaS is a method of software delivery that allows data to be accessed from any device with an internet connection and web browser. In this web-based model, software vendors host and maintain the servers, database, and code that constitute an application. So you need to know that. The SAP trends. basically what SAP is. What type of company? Anybody know? What is SAP? If I type SAP, what kind of company is SAP?
Okay.
What? What type of company is SAP?
No, business software company.
But what else? It's basically started as what? An ERP company
Data.
that's based in where? In Germany, that we have basically an SAP company. You have here the 5 trends in ERP. So this would be a good question for an open-ended question. What are the 5 trends to look for in ERP solutions? What are the disadvantages of the current ERP systems? And how can vendors address these issues? ERP trends. And you need to know the difference between AI, which stands for what? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. What's the difference between these? The whole key is the most broad is AI. Then machine learning, what's the differentiation in machine learning? If you were going to tell somebody in one sentence, what's the difference between machine learning and computing, it would be what? Michael, what would it be? Did you understand the question? If I were going to ask somebody, what is machine learning? How is that different from regular computing? That's a great question for the exam, as part of the exam, open-ended exam. How is machine? Have you ever heard about machine learning, Michael? Have you ever heard it mentioned? Yeah. It's mentioned all the time. Have you ever heard AI mentioned? All the time. Have you ever done something like Siri? Talk to Siri, right? Yep. That it's doing it all the time. So what is machine learning? This is what you need to know for the exam.
Machine learning is like it learns as it computes and
right? So what's the difference between learning versus computing? You ever used Excel? Yes, right? So Excel, you put in that formula, right? And it had a built-in formula. It will then compute it each time. So what will machine learning do different than a formula running a formula in Excel? And what does it mean, learning? What does it mean when you're learning? Have you ever learned anything? Right? All the time, right? You're learning all the time. What's the difference? Who can help? You want somebody to help you out, or you want to take a stab?
you seem to
No, but what is? Think about what did you say with learning? What happens with learning? Who can help them out? Yeah, Jerry, or you want to just push your hair back? Okay.
Intelligence is like increased, like there's additional things that are
Okay, but what can we say to somebody? Somebody said, what is the machine going to do? I know machines all the time. So what is it going to do? What does it mean? And I know the word learn, right? Michael just said the word learn. So what's going to be unique?
It's taking data and making a decision.
Yeah, but but is that machine learning? I can tell it, taking data, you remember I can say, what if the salary, if the price is greater than 500, add 10% commission, right? That's making a decision, right? If NPV is greater than 0, then go for it. If NPV is less than 0, then don't. That's making a decision, right? Yes? Is that machine learning?
No.
Machine learning is growing capabilities through experience.
1 through experience plus what? Learning from its mistakes. Put that in your notes then. Learning from its mistakes. Getting better each iteration around. So, think about forecasting. Michael, the idea if you're going to forecast, are you going to be 100% correct? Of course not, right? But what do you want to do? If you get more experience in learning, what do you hope to be? As you go, what? You're going to be more accurate, right? As you get experience, I can already see you're in real estate, right? And somebody with a lot of real estate experience, they say, I can see that this is going to be a good property because it's similar to what I knew in the past. And I can see this is going to be a debt. When you're hiring people, right? Sometimes I know now I'm not going to hire somebody that's just or I want to hire somebody where I have mistakes. So what you're having, put this in your notes then, in machine learning, it learns from its mistakes and it improves. Also what machine learning does is it brings insights to sometimes what the end user did not know. They use machine learning everywhere. They use it in healthcare. Anybody ever seen a radiologist before? Anybody know what a radiologist is? What's a radiologist? Oh. X-ray. They read X-rays, right? Now what they're doing is they're having machines read X-rays. The computer reads X-rays using machine learning, meaning what? I train, Michael. How do you train a machine learning? Is that you give it, you can first do what they call supervised learning. Put it in your notes then. Supervised learning means that you as a human will train the computer program. You will train the computer to learn. So if you have X-rays, Michael, have you ever had an X-ray before? Basically, a human being reads it and they says, okay, I see that you have a crack here and let's figure out what to do. Or now they're doing it for cancer. Let's say you have a dermatologist, right, looking for skin cancer. What do? This looks suspicious, then they put it under a microscope and then they test it. Well, what you have is you can think about it is if I have different images of skin, possibly suspicious skin lesions, I can teach the computer, this is what a benign lesion looks like. This is a group. This is what a group of cancerous lesions look like. Try to figure out what are the characteristics that differentiate cancerous lesions versus non-cancerous lesions. Give me an idea here for bankrupt companies versus non-bankrupt companies. What were the characteristics that I could forecast a bankrupt company versus one? Or what could I forecast? Did this company succeed versus others? I give it a set or fraudulent transactions for credit card fraud. Credit card companies use machine learning all the time. How do they train it? They know what good transactions look like that were valid. They know what fraudulent transactions were. They train it. They basically say, now the computer, find me the characteristics of the fraudulent transaction versus the other ones. Then what they do after they train it, they supervise it, they test it. They give the computer case studies or records, and then they say, now machine, go ahead and tell me, is it fraudulent or not? You know already the answers, right? Because you've done it before. And then what happens, Michael? Then basically you put it back and you say, you know what? You got 80% incorrect, 20% incorrect. So what's the machine learning? You want it to do what? Improve its accuracy or what? Decrease its errors. So you go back and you say, you know what? You put too much emphasis on where it was bought and not enough emphasis on it didn't match the pattern of this customer. Who makes it? And basically you feed it back each time to do what? That the machine then will learn. So now, for instance, in medicine, they're anticipating most x-rays won't be read by human beings. They'll be read by the computer. But what happens is who will then be making the rules and giving the rules and the decisions will be the radiologist. who will be then doing it? So some of the things, so they can spend on really hard cases and really simple cases. Oh, that's basically non-malignant. You know, you just have that spot on your way. Why bother going? You know what you'll do? You'll take your phone, take a picture of that lesion, and it'll come back and say, chances are 98% that this is not cancer. You'll take an app to do it, right? You won't have to do it, but that 2%, or this looks suspicious, go to a dermatologist. It's the same thing with companies, the same way of learning. So that is the difference between machine learning and regular computing. AI is the generic part, and basically it will keep on learning. Anybody hear about Alexa? Who's heard about Alexa on Amazon? Anybody hear that now Alexa listens to all your conversations at home? Why does it listen to all your conversations? Because it's interested really in hearing all the juicy gossip you're talking about your friends and so forth at home. Why does it listen? Yeah, Paul.
So like learn different terminology.
Yeah, it's basically trying to improve each time, and it's basically trying. Now they say that they don't store your information, right? They say that they're not picking up who you are, but it wants to learn. It's just like, have you ever done the voice translation? Have you ever done translating from voice to text? And sometimes it's not completely accurate. Have you ever seen that one language to another language? It doesn't do exactly the same. So what it does is it wants humans to say, hey, this was incorrect. Now these are the ways in which, almost like the open source community, help us get better. YouTube does that with captions. It says you can get the community to give it input. So that is, Michael, so this is the article, and deep learning basically, in deep learning, what it ends up doing is it goes into more layers of the learning. Who uses deep learning a lot? Google's using deep learning on applications like Waymo. Anybody hear about Waymo? W-A-Y-M-O. Anybody hear about autonomous vehicles? Driving themselves? All of that is doing what? Deep learning, because I have to distinguish between what? How far the car is. I have to distinguish, is that a person? I don't want to be running over people. So you need to know this, clearing the confusion between AI versus machine learning versus deep learning. These articles I suggest you go over. Another open-ended question, Jerry, is cloud computing. These are questions for the cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Amazon Web Services is the largest cloud computing company in the world. And think about it. Amazon, we know it from ordering, but basically their AWS section is their most profitable. Why? Because it's economy of scales. They already basically do what? What is cloud computing? That I can do what? Tell me in a sentence what's cloud computing. This is a good review. Somebody was asking, just like machine learning, that it can learn, right, Michael? It can learn from its mistakes. Now, basically, we got to think about cloud computing, Allie, is what's cloud computing. What would you tell me?
Did you say Allie? Sorry. It's when you use a network on the internet to store rather than using it on a local
So what's the key word in cloud computing?
cloud.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And what does cloud mean? Cloud, I look up and I see going to be a cloudy day, right? A rainy day. What's the key? On demand. So you can put it in your notes then. Basically, cloud computing is on demand. I can get computing services. I can scale. What does scale mean, Allie? That I can move up or move down. Paul has a great idea and maybe in the beginning, he has 3 guys together, and starting the company, and if he wants to scale, he was gonna use cloud computing, because he said, I don't wanna invest in hardware. I don't want to invest in software. I don't want to invest in operating systems. And when I grow, that means scaling. When I grow, will he have the same needs for computing as when he had 0 customers? And then when he has 10,000 customers, when he has 1 million customers, when he has 5 million subscribers, and then when he's ready to go public, and then when he's ready to exit, and Uber's going to buy him. And then he said, well, maybe Uber is not the best. Let me kind of bid some other people to buy me. Maybe Apple should buy me. Or maybe Microsoft should buy me. Or Facebook. Just like, the idea of Instagram. Who owns Instagram? Facebook. Did Facebook always have them? No. But once they were successful, they got their niche, right? So the idea here of cloud is on demand, scalable. You can grow. It can be by project. It can compute. I can have databases. I have something called what does that say? Who can read that? On the very top. Right here. Who can tell me what those letters are? Just read it.
IaaS.
IaaS. Have you heard AAS before? What did it stand for before? SaaS stood for what? Software as a service. What's IaaS? And if you don't know, what do you think you should do? Fine, what do you think you should do? What's IaaS? Infrastructure as a service. And what's PaaS? Platform as a service. So let's think about what a platform is. Anybody know? And this all has to do, Allie, with the cloud. Platform, aren't you glad we're doing the review? So that's why I think it's better we do it now, then you can go back and then you can see what it is. So platform as a service. Anybody hear of what an OS is? What's an OS? What's an OS? Anna, what's an OS? Operating system. So usually you have your operating system right on your phone, right? You have your operating system on your Mac, on your Windows machine, right? So what is, as a service, basically, let's say you need to get Windows and you don't have Windows. What can you do? On the cloud, you can get access to a Windows machine. So what is that? Platform as a service. I can get it on demand, use it, let's say I'm gonna be using it for forecasting equities. For just one project, do you need it all the time? No. So that's platform as a service, you can get that platform. What's a definition of platform? Put it in your notes, an operating system. What's examples of an operating system? Windows, what else? Linux, Unix, iOS, Mac OS. What is server provisioning? Basically, what you can see here, what is server provisioning is, I want to run, Trudy, a computer that's going to be doing machine learning. It requires a lot of resources, and let's say we have millions of records that I want to find out about my customers. Let's say Paul hires you. Paul now has 5 million subscribers. And he says, you know what? I want to know who are my best customers. I want to forecast who will buy more for me, Trudy. And you say, okay, I'll do the job of machine learning. And guess what? Do you need to buy the machine? What could you use instead? I basically could use the cloud, and I say, you know what? I need to set up 3 servers. Provisioning means set up. Use the word provisioning and think about it as setting up. So what you're going to be needed to do then is to have what is the cloud, and you can look at these articles to help you add to what we just did from the book. These will be possible open-ended questions. And as I said before, I'll add more the open-ended questions. So from down here, what is the cloud? What is cloud computing? The differences between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. You can look at all these articles to see what's the difference between AI, machine learning, and deep learning. And go through this. AI means getting a computer to mimic human behavior in some way. Machine learning is a subset of AI, and it consists of techniques that enable the computer to figure things out from the data and deliver AI. And deep learning is a subset of machine learning that enables computers to solve more complex ways. So they go into what is machine learning, what is deep learning, how deep learning works, and the conclusion. And here's another one on clearing the confusion between the 3 ways how Google uses deep learning. And this is like what we talked about before. We're like the SAP trends. And what's happening there? So the tech trends, look what's here. These are the trends that you need to be familiar with. Digital transformation, traditional business models are being radically disrupted in the digital economy. Discover what it means and takes to transform, explore strategies. Machine learning, blockchain, Internet of Things, cloud computing. Look at this. Trudy, you're going to get so excited. From SaaS, what is SaaS? Service, and PaaS, what's PaaS? Platform as a service, to private and hybrid. Learn more about cloud technology and benefits. You can also investigate the loudest cloud trends. And then big data continues to explode. are the 5 trends, the ERP trends of what's happening. That's the open-ended questions that you have. And if I go back, to course documents, and I open it, you can see that you'll have a list of the concepts that you need in the open-ended way. Questions? So that's the review for the exam. Any questions? So they'll be from 80 to 100. We have from, what time? From 5 to 7:30? Where is it? Where's the final exam?
LC 170.
LC 170. Make sure that you know that. Let me now go over what the project needs to be. So go to course documents in your regular section. Everybody there? Everybody there? Paul, you there? The regular section? Diana, how are we doing? Okay. You want to look at this? So this is what your project needs to be next week. Everybody will be doing a presentation. It'll be from 7. Let's hit on 7 minutes. You're presenting it via some kind of presentation model, either a PowerPoint or Prezi. On what you need, you can take a picture of this to make sure that you have it. It's on your course documents at the bottom of your regular section. You can have a PowerPoint, and basically it's going through the proposal again in a succinct manner, and I will be grading you based on how well you answer those questions. Everybody should have a website. Preferable of getting full credit is having your own URL, domain name, and presenting what is your business idea in the way of what is the problem you're attempting to solve, what is available now, how is your solution different, who are your competitors, and you must entail what is your revenue model. Also included that was not necessarily on your website or your app is not only your team members, but what specific roles and tasks they did in the project. Rather than saying, this person is my marketing director, that tells me nothing. It basically is, I developed or I did the app entirely on my own, or I did the first 3 pages of the website, or I did nothing for the project. Also, you need to put in what are the future enhancements? What's the next steps? This is only a prototype, right, Paul? So what's the next step? Where do we go from here? What are our challenges that we have? Yes, Paul?
Are you gonna want us to present the app or just like?
Yes.
Okay.
You will, along this, show your website. Put this in your notes. You will show your website and you will show your app. There may different ways in which you can do it. Yes, do you have another
Yeah,
question?
do we have to like press out for this?
You don't have to dress up. I care more, what I care about is the content. And also in tech here, dressing up is not adding any value to your company or ideas. You know, we're not going for job interviews in the bank, but rather we're doing projects and how succinctly you can do this and how the idea, yes.
For the team members part, does that have to be in the PowerPoint that we're presenting, or you want to separate the PowerPoint? 'Cause I know
You can put it as another slide.
Okay.
You may not want to put that on your website, you know what I mean? I have a goofball in my group, you know what I mean? You want to present the best in terms of your team. And just so you know, and I'll tell you next week, is you will be evaluating not only yourself, but your project and every member of your team privately. And you'll be turning that in to me in a sealed envelope on the day of the exam. And you'll be grading your project, you'll be grading yourself, and just to let you know, it'll be from 0 to 100. And it's impossible, and if you give yourself and everyone in your group 100, it will look poorly on you because it's unreasonable. You know, but I know that you didn't put any effort into really evaluating it. It's 100, right? What else? So everybody understand? Shorten, all shorten to the point that somebody basically, almost like a investor, said, yes, I understand this, I understand it. I'll be asking you questions, and what you'll be doing is make sure, what we'll even do is one person will be like on the board, writing down my critiques. And then after the critiques, you'll have everything up in your audit area. Make sure you're ready to go quickly, 1, 2, 3, you know, showing everything. You'll present it. I'll give you feedback on it, and you can accept my feedback or not for the final. But I'll be giving you feedback. In order, what I think needs to be improved, you can write those down. And then so you have a choice. It's almost like we talk agile development. It's basically giving feedback that you say, I don't want to be in a situation where I say, you know what, you got to be on your project, and you come back to me and say, what was missing? And I said, well, you really didn't talk about your competitors as much. And you said, well, if I knew that, we would have included it. This way you know exactly what I want for an A project. You decide whether you want to meet those or not. You have that choice. You understand? But at least you'll have feedback rather than turning it in at the end and I give you an 80 or an 85. You say, what was wrong? Oh, we would have done that. Had we known, or we didn't know that you didn't like it. So that's what, think about it, is the more fully you can show it to me, the more I can give you feedback. What else? So what I'll do now is I'll formally end the class. And then if you want me to look at your projects, we can look at it. I'll be happy to look at your projects. You can raise your hand. If you feel like everything is done and you're on your way, you can do it. Yeah.
Finals.
What?
I got time this week, and I got time after next week. Like, fuck.
Did you want me to look at your project? Okay, so let's start. Stay with me if you have questions. So where are we meeting next week? Here. For the exam and for the review, where are we meeting?
170.
170. And the review, basically what I'll do is if you have questions, something that you don't understand.